Hi guys, welcome back to TV Spoilers. Y&R Spoilers Friday, March 6th, I'm going to review to you a dramatic conflict as Jack attempts to escape from prison. Victor faces dire consequences for his own wicked schemes. Jack Abbott, imprisoned by Newman's secret safe house, unexpectedly finds a forgotten gun in a drawer. When Victor Newman arrives to taunt Jack and demand to relinquish all Abbott privileges, a struggle ensues. During the struggle, the gun accidentally fires, hitting Victor in the shoulder and severely wounding him. Jack panicked, takes the opportunity to escape, leaving Victor writhing in the floor. Jack Abbott woke into a heaviness so dense that even his own consciousness felt unfamiliar to him. In the first few seconds, he could not even tell where reality ended and where the fog left behind by his long blackout began. The first sensation that hit him was not pain, but emptiness, a terrifying blank space in his memory, as if someone had deliberately cut an important stretch time of his life. The air in the room told him immediately that he was nowhere familiar. It held none of the warmth of the Abbott home, none of the atmosphere of his office, and certainly none of the sterile order of a hospital. It carries the cold, sealed, dry stillness of a place that had been cleaned carefully but never lived in, a space without humanity, existing only to contain. The harder he tried to remember, the more his head pounded. Fragments flickered and shattered just as quickly, a careless moment, a wave of dizziness, something warm and chemical in the air before darkness swallowed everything. Jack did not need long to understand that he had not come here by choice. He had been brought here helplessly, almost certainly through some vile method, and that realization alone was enough to ignite a rage he could barely control. As the haze began to lift, the real horror began to take shape. Jack scanned the room, desperate for some clue that might tell him where he was, but everything around him had been arranged in a way that felt cold and anonymous. Bare walls, a locked door, covered windows, every detail seemed designed to strip a person of direction and certainty. There was not a single personal object, not one trace of identity, nothing for him to hold on to, and that deliberate emptiness only made the truth clearer. This was not random. This was prepared. A secret safe house, a place hidden enough to make someone disappear from the world for as long as necessary. The moment that thought fully settled in his mind, anger took over the shock. He understood that he had not merely been restrained, he had been turned into a hostage. That fact insulted everything he had built over the years, his dignity, his strength, his refusal to bend. For Jack Abbott, being attacked openly would already have been intolerable, but being treated like an object to be hidden away in silence was worse. His despair did not come from fear of harm. It came from knowing exactly who was capable of something like this. Victor Newman's name formed in Jack's mind almost immediately, without the need for proof. Only Victor had the means, the arrogance, and the twisted devotion to power to turn a corporate battle into something this vile. The more Jack thought, the more the pieces aligned with Victor's usual methods. Control, humiliation, pressure, psychological warfare before delivering the final blow. This was no longer just another clash between two men who had spent years despising each other. It was a war that had lasted so long that none of the old wounds had ever truly healed. Victor had never accepted Jack as an equal rival. In Victor's eyes, Jack had always been someone who needed to be forced downward, someone who had to be proven weaker, smaller, easier to break. And because Jack understood that truth so well, a chill moved through him even as his fury rose. This was no longer business. This was Victor declaring that he was willing to cross any line. The feeling of being violated and stripped of control nearly suffocated Jack, but it also forced him to become sharper. If Victor had dragged the conflict this far, then one mistake could mean Jack would never walk out of this place alive. Jack began studying the room with fierce concentration, pushing aside the pain in his skull and the rage burning in his chest, replacing both with survival instinct. He checked every corner, listened for the smallest noise, tried to sense any movement beyond the locked door. The silence was oppressive. and that silence made every step feel formidable. Every drawer, every shelf, every object in the room became a possibility, however small. Jack knew he couldn't sit still and wait for rescue, and he certainly couldn't hope for mercy from the man who had ordered him locked away. Time in that room no longer moved in normal units. It became pressure, invisible and relentless, grinding at his mind. The longer he stayed trapped, the less advantage he had. The more he let Victor control the rhythm, the deeper he fell into helplessness. So even with his body still weak, Jack forced himself to move, searching desperately for some way out of the carefully built trap. And honestly, this is the kind of situation that is hard to view as just another dramatic twist. The most haunting part is not who was injured more badly or who gained the upper hand for the moment. It is the feeling that everything has gone too far to be repaired by reason. In that moment, Jack is both sympathetic and frightening, because he is a victim pushed into a corner, yet also the man who must live with the sound of a gun going off in his own hands. Victor is still Victor, ruthless, controlling, incapable of accepting defeat, but it is also that very arrogance that leads him to the moment where he is wounded inside the trap he created himself. Perhaps what makes the story feel so heavy is that neither of them truly wins. One escapes in panic, the other is left behind in pain, and between them is a gunshot powerful enough to alter the entire course of a lifelong feud. To me, that is what makes this turn in Y&R feel especially intense, because after a moment like this, what remains is no longer competition. It is damage, deep, personal, and incredibly hard to undo.